Hi everybody, go check out my friends at Sonic Science CBD. They're a full spectrum hemp based CBD manufacturer based out of Renton, Washington that use the entire hemp plant to extract phytocannabinoid rich CBD oil in a pharmacist licensed clinical lab using medical grade CO2. CBD, for those of you who don't know, is a non intoxicating remedy for insomnia, anxiety, chronic pain, and other inflammatory conditions. Sonic Science makes a variety of products, including tinctures, topicals, pre workout, which is my personal favorite, along with flour. Go check out their Facebook group, Sonic Science CBD, to learn more. Also, check out episode 8 of the Roscoe's Wetsuit podcast, in which I interview Sonic Science CBD CEO and founder Tim McDougall.
All right, welcome everyone to a new episode of the Roscoe's Wetsuit podcast. I'm your host, Toby Passman, coming at you from Boca Raton, Florida. The first segment, we're going to do the real lyric of the day. This comes from Kanye West's song I Wonder from his album Graduation. This is the third verse. He says, "And I'm back on my grind. A psychic read my lifeline, told me in my lifetime my name would help light up the Chicago skyline. And that's why I'm 7 o'clock, that's prime time. Heaven'll watch, God calling from the hotlines. Why he keep giving me hot lines. I'm a star, how could I not shine?" Excited for the show today. I've got a real special guest, Randy Brantley. Randy is a really cool guy. Randy, you are, an entrepreneur, obviously, running your own business, I think all around kind of badass. But anyway, me and Randy met last year at my where I was working, basically neuroscience kind of personal growth institute. And Randy happened to be a client the week that one of the weeks where I was actually going through the program myself. And I think, me and you kind of just, struck up a good kind of rapport right off the bat and had some really interesting conversations about, kind of psychology and mindsets and just kind of the way we, frame our thoughts and mentality about things. So, I think, you've got a lot going for you, man. And I kind of wanted to just pick your brain and catch up. So I'm really happy that you're on the show today, Randy.
Yeah, man. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited about being here with you today. And good to see you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to kind of start off just by, I probably, some people who are listening may have never heard of, something like neurofeedback before. Like, what the heck is that? I'm sure you probably got that reaction from some people you were telling about the training, right?
Oh, I still get the crazy looks. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. I mean, I still am working in the field, so I get it all the time. Like, you zap
Yeah.
my brain, or what is this,
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah, exactly. Are you zapping your brain, man? What are you
Yeah, I got that all the time.
Yeah.
But basically, to sort of break it down, we were kind of immersed in this what they kind of called a neurofeedback intensive, where we were doing this brain training, basically, kind of involving this EEG neurofeedback, where we had electrodes on our heads, and then we were kind of meditating, kind of working on, kind of reframing certain psychological things, kind of doing different, kind of techniques to kind of work through things from our past and kind of, reframe our mindsets to, to sort of improve our outlook on the future. Does that kind of fall in line with your experience of
Yeah,
how do you describe it to
I
people?
think so. Yeah, I think the going in and having resets. Like
Yeah.
the way they explained it to me the best was they're like little files in your brain, or apps, and we're just kind of deleting those old apps and going back to the past to get rid of the negative way of thinking, like tapping into your brain. It's
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
stabilize you in alpha. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. The alpha brainwaves being the kind of key to a lot of kind of deeper sort of meditative states and feeling calm and relaxed, that, where we often produce a lot of beta waves, just kind of going throughout our day-to-day experience. But then, as we kind of learn, dropping down into alpha, you get these sort of experiences where you're kind of, able to sort of access, some subconscious, unconscious material and sort of reconceptualize it, I think,
Yeah.
in some ways, which, I think we all like, it was, I think it was 5 of us that week, right? Was it 4 or 5?
4 of us.
4 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a tight, we all became, a very
Mhm.
tight knit group throughout the week. And I think we all had, super powerful experiences, I think, all in our own ways, maybe that we didn't really expect.
Right.
But the technology really seem to kind of open all of us up, right? In the sense of, whoa, I hadn't thought of that in, for 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, even in the pods, I never really meditated before I got there, and I felt like I had like out of body experiences. It was pretty amazing to feel that, and then be able to kind of jar some of your memory of things that maybe you didn't realize bothered you in the past that really was kind of holding you back.
Hmm. Hmm. And did you notice kind of after going back and kind of dealing with that sort of stuff, like, after you left, this is kind of our first time sort of really catching up, at least sort of, face to face, at
Hmm.
least on Skype, since we did that, did you feel like, going forward in your life that you were kind of able to sort of put some things in the past that,
I think so. I think it helped
yeah,
me really kind of navigate through life a little easier, and maybe stay in more control and not lose that, not lose your control. When something
yeah,
doesn't go quite your way, well, it's okay.
yeah. Yeah, I
And
know we talked about a lot like that week as far as like our mindsets, as far as like, external events happen and they could be terrible, terrible events and stuff, but at the same time it's all we always have kind of the responsibility of how we react to it, how we
right.
react to
Hmm.
people or yeah, I think that's something I think a lot of people don't really realize,
Hmm. Yeah.
that they have sort of power over their emotions and mental states.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think they do. And I work with. It's really with my employees now. I try to kind of coach them a little bit in things when I see them kind of. I say, hey, that's just your perception. You know. You can have a good day or a bad day here. So it's really made me open my eyes to a new way of thinking and looking at things.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you bring up an awesome point as far as its usefulness. I think a lot of people think of like meditating and they're like, oh, I'm gonna achieve this like spiritual,
Right.
bliss, and maybe some people experience that, and maybe some people don't. But at the same time, I think, a lot of the benefits can be applied, just in kind of your day-to-day life. Like, I know Google, a lot of the other Silicon Valley kind of tech companies have started opening up sort of like they have meditation classes where they,
Yeah.
have their employees do meditation because they know it improves work performance. They know people are cognitively kind of more refreshed, more, alert, able to, work faster, harder, you know, and but I think that's really cool as far as from a leadership perspective, because how many employees do you have?
I have 40 during the
40.
peaks.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you really got to like navigate all of these different personalities and
Right. Yeah.
all this. I mean, yeah, is that a tough, it seems like that's probably a pretty tough part of
It
being your
is.
own
It used,
boss.
it used to be a lot tougher, and now I've changed my way of thinking and my mindset about it. It's just like I can't really change. It's not me. It's not me per se. It's more. I used to think, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Well, really, it's not. It's just the perception that they're having of their job, or maybe it was my perception of them at the time. But now I can step back and go, you have a choice here. You can
Mm,
have a good experience at your job, or you can have a bad experience at your job.
Right.
Really, it's up to you. It all
Yeah.
stems from the inside.
And that's another thing where it's like sometimes it actually isn't us where we think it's our fault or our problem when it's really complete, it could be something going on in their life and
Oh,
their day, and that's the reason they're being a jerk. It may not actually have anything to do with us.
right.
I,
Just another example is I'm mentoring a kid now. He's 6 years old, and he just can't seem to get it together. Like in the classroom. So the teacher, which is my wife, she asked me to come and she goes, "Will you come talk to him?" And because I think she's noticed how I kind of try to steer people into that direction now, and that he always says that people blame him for everything.
mm,
They call me on the bus, and I say, "Hey, look, hey, it's not you. Something's wrong with those guys.
mm,
You tell the bus driver, you ignore them or whatever, but there's nothing wrong with you." So I think we need more of that in our schools too, to get
absolutely.
to steer these kids in the right way.
Yeah, I think that it sounds like, a really powerful thing to instill kind of in kids from a young age. If they can have that mindset, I think that changes everything, as
Oh,
far as that, going forward in life.
mm-hmm.
But I'm curious as far like, do you think you're a 6-year-old, I'm curious, do you think they have that kind of cognitive capacity to realize, to like sort of have those thoughts and realize kind of what you're telling them?
I think it's just I think it has to start somewhere, and I think
Uh-huh.
they like I don't know if it's sinking in fully with him, but I think he's listening, like I was trying to tell her earlier, like he's always saying, everything's always my fault. I'm saying, well, he's hearing that from somewhere. He's just not coming up with that on his own, so somebody is telling him that already.
Yeah, yeah, and
Got
that
we've got to go ahead and reprogram that mind of not everything's your fault, because somebody he's
right.
hearing that from somewhere already.
You're right. Yeah. And that's kind of what's scary is as a kid, you're so kind of influenced by whatever's around you. You don't really have, a mature brain to be able to think for yourself. So, a lot of, kind of the work I do now is, a lot, is kind of digging into people's past and kind of, like kind of what we were doing somewhat, with the neurofeedback, where it's kind of going and sort of rewiring a lot of this faulty sort of programming, if you want to use the kind of analogy of the brain sort of being like a computer. There's sort of all of these programs that are running kind of in our subconscious, and maybe have kind of been installed potentially in childhood. And I think what's scary is like it wasn't our choice. We may be, told like, we're this way, we're stupid, like
Mhm.
it's crazy how influential the people, in your life really are, at that age.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's awesome for that kid, to have someone like you there to sort of be, pointing him in a better direction.
Because that's how we went back with the resets we did, and if you notice that some of those went way back to our childhood.
Yeah.
So we were it's just we were kind of a product of our environment, and we didn't know any better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think some of it's kind of inevitable, that not everyone around you is going to be perfect, your parents or your teachers or
No.
all, but certainly, having good kind of role models or good people around you, I think, at an early age, I think will,
Yeah,
hopefully set that kid up for a lot more success.
and it's not even that his parents' fault either. That's just the way
Sure.
they probably brought up as well, so they don't know any better, and they probably don't even know they're saying stuff. It might not even be coming from his parents, but it could be or could not be, but they don't even realize that they're even saying stuff like that.
Right. And yeah, you're right. How it was, that's kind of programming that's probably been passed along from their parents and their
Exactly.
parents' parents.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something interesting. I remember talking to some, I don't know if it was you at when we were doing the neurofeedback, but I had a conversation with someone about there's a concept known as transgenerational trauma, which is basically kind of the psychology of how sort of traumatic events can kind of be programmed into either, our genes and get passed along, or also just kind of you know, our parents, people who have, um, a lot of interaction with us,
Yeah.
as kids. But there's sort of this idea where it's like, if people, our grandparents, have been through, these kind of traumatic experiences, we're more likely to kind of be afflicted by that kind of potentially PTSD, or at least kind of,
Right.
lessen ability to deal with stress.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with money. If you grow up in a poor family, you always hear that the rich people are they're crooks, or money don't grow on trees, or we can't afford it. So you're always programmed with, well, I don't deserve that money. But really, I mean, if you keep telling yourself that same story, well, then you'll never have the financial freedom that you really want in life. Because you always
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
well, I can't afford that. Well, if you
Right.
tell yourself that, well, you can't afford it.
Right. Yeah, it's like I totally endorse. I mean, I think that's so true as far as, I think a lot of people, and not to say anything's wrong with like budgeting, but I think a
No.
lot of people are so focused on like, oh, I gotta, only spend this amount of money, and be so kind of conservative. Whereas like the way I think is like, okay, how can I put myself in positions to learn and grow my skill set to be able to make a lot more money, and
Right.
not have to be so constrained by like, oh, I'm only going to have this fixed salary, and I'm only going to be able to make this amount of money.
Hmm.
I think that that's a super powerful sort of change in mindset to sort of realize that, I mean, there's all the money in the world that's just waiting for someone's gonna take it. Someone's gonna open up the next business that's gonna make
Yeah.
millions, billions of dollars. Why can't it be you?
And you're just as good as the next person.
Yeah, and I think you're a living display of that. As far as
I'm,
you actually,
boy,
went out.
growing
Yeah,
up, we didn't have much, and I decided I wanted better for myself.
that's awesome. I
You
I,
know.
I really do. I really do want to kind of ask you as far as, I think I've heard a bit of the story, but can you kind of, walk me through like, what originally, well, first off, maybe if you could just describe the business that you're currently running, and then sort of what gave you sort of the inspiration to actually go out and do that.
Well, it started back, really. I mean, I worked for that company when I was in high school, and then I would come back. I came back in summer and did it. And then I was off in college. I went out of state for college, and I finally came home, and the lady who had the company, she said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know, I just got back." And she goes, "You want to come run the business?" I was like, "Well, sure, why not?"
And this was a boating company at this
Boating,
time, is that right?
shops, yeah, a lot of tourist stuff, boat tours, and it was kind of it was small then, and we've added a lot to it. I've added a lot to it since I've taken it over. So yeah, I just started. I came home and just started grinding it out, and I'm really a hands-on person, and um, I just took it day by day, and I never gave up, and there were some hiccups along the way, and some days like I don't know if I can do this, and you just keep going, and it all seems usually it'll work out. It always works out.
Mm-hmm.
You got to believe in yourself. You got to have the right mindset. And it's all learning, really. You can blame or you can criticize somebody else, but when you learn not to blame and criticize and complain about other people or other things, or why this isn't working, you'll get a lot further in life too.
Yeah. Was that something you feel like you did a lot of, or dealt with kind of like when you
Early
were
on,
younger, and
early,
then you sort of like learned those lessons just kind of moving through life?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Early on, I think I blamed and criticized and complained. Why,
Yeah.
why me, why this and that. But that really, you keep saying those things, and it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So okay, so basically you were sort of working for this company in high school.
Uh-huh.
Um And then so I take it you kind of established yourself as a really hard worker and sort of earned the trust of the
Yeah,
woman that
yeah.
was currently, or that was previously in charge of the
She,
place.
yeah, she owned it before me. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. I guess she saw that I was trustworthy, and so and I've always tried to pride myself on hard work more than
Yeah.
anything else. I think that gets you a lot, and being honest. I think that gets you pretty far in life. So yeah. So I mean, now we've almost tripled sales, and added a lot of different boats and tours and merchandise, and too, as the years have gone by, the town has grown, and the season has gotten longer than it used to be. It used to be from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Now we have more of the shoulder seasons, March or the spring and fall. So that helps out a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what was kind of the timeline as far as did it, it sounds like, you probably were working every day, working really hard on kind of building this thing. How long from kind of when you took over to, being able to get to where you are today, where you have all of these things and, have
It
been
took
able to triple profits, like you're saying,
me about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
And this was, I assume, just kind of a daily grind, sort of your
Every,
passion project,
every
right?
day. Every day. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
man, I could tell. I mean, we talked, and I could tell you didn't seem like the type of guy to take days off.
No, you can't. Well, I mean, I guess you can, but I couldn't. I'm just
Yeah.
more of a hands-on person. But I am learning to kind of to delegate a little bit more, because now I see that and it's still hard to do it. I still want to get out there and look and show them that I do it. So I'm not better than anybody else. Um,
Yeah.
that hard work does pay off. But if you want to, I think I'm ready to take that next step into venture to something else. You
Hmm.
know, so I'm trying to put the right people in places there to kind of oversee that. Maybe find another me and to move on and build something else.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah,
look forward to seeing whatever's next.
yeah. Like
Um,
I told someone, it's like I'm a dam, and I got so much inside off this world, but I just got to figure out what's on the other side of that dam right now.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm curious as far as, with the company, is there anything in particular, you sort of briefly touched on sort of, I guess, kind of like leading by example as far as kind of showing your employees, I'm not better than anyone else. And I assume just, from kind of our interactions, that you probably sort of exude that sort of attitude at work. Would you say that's the case as far as sort of, just kind of being relatable with employees? Like
I
what
think
sort of characteristics do you think make you successful as a manager?
I think just being hands on, being approachable, just being just one of the just one of the guys,
Yeah.
guys or gals or whoever, just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it honestly, I mean, from I think I'm coming at it from a different perspective because, I'm at the stage of life, where I've been more of an employee.
Hmm.
But coming at it from my perspective, it's like I always see, managers and bosses as, I think when they're doing really good jobs, it's because that they've made themselves sort of like relatable and they're not, they don't sort of say I'm up here and you're down here. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, we're I'm gonna boost you. I'm up here and I'm gonna, kind of like take you up to my level. Like they're,
Hmm.
sort of inspirational. Um, that's kind of what I've noticed just from an employee perspective, as far as what makes a good manager. But it just I'm super curious, just coming at it from the other side. It seems so difficult to be able to, I mean, for one, to be able to manage our own thoughts and emotions and our, reactions, but to have to manage, 40 other people is like, how do you do that? What is it just practice or?
I've had people say that before to me. They're like, I don't know how you deal with all this, and I go, I don't know, but I guess you just can't take it to like I said, you just got to know that everything's going to work out. Everything is um, has its purpose, and everything will you just keep working hard, and 99% of the time everything does work out just fine. If you
Hmm.
have the right attitude, it's all mindset. Every bit of it's mindset.
Yeah,
And when
I
you
totally.
starting out, you used to take things a little personally, with employees or a customer that's not happy. But what I realized, even with the customers, is just their perception of what they thought it was going to be like in their mind, or they were having a bad day already because the other 99 people had a great time.
Hmm.
You
There's
know.
just the one bad apple that you kind of got to deal with.
Yeah, and you realize that what, they could just be having a bad day. It's nothing against you. It's nothing. You did anything wrong. It's just
Right.
something like kind of it's not me. It's more of something's bothering them. It's their
Yes.
perception of what they thought they were going to have or do or
Right.
you know.
And and honestly, I really think it does kind of come back to sort of what we experience like as kids, where it's like, and we talked about this some, going through the neurofeedback training, where I think it's like, as kids we're sort of like, very, we don't know what's going on, and if, say our parent, they could have had an awful day, they could have just gotten fired from work, and if
Right.
they come home and yell at you for something, and you're then that your sort of your sort of mental lesson that you've learned from that experience could be, they don't love me, they don't care,
Yeah,
whereas really it had nothing to do with you,
and that's
but
just
but as a kid you can't differentiate the two.
right. That's just a story you're telling yourself in your head.
Yeah.
That's your own little story. And I
What
have
what
I have a great example of that. Even when we were doing that neurofeedback, and we were about to get into the pod to do the 90-minute my 90-minute sessions, and she was the one girl was telling me to giving me instructions on what she wanted me to do for the 90 minutes, and I said, oh, okay. And then she looked at me. She said, are you not going to take any notes? And I said, oh, so you notice I'm not a good note taker? She was like, no, that's your story you're telling yourself. I just wanted you to get the best session possible out of that, and you're just told
right.
you were just thinking that you weren't a good note taker, but I didn't think that at
Interesting.
all.
Yeah, that's a super good example.
Yeah,
And I was gonna say it's interesting how it's like that's something that, we mature in a lot of other aspects, I feel like, as we get older, but we still sort of stick with that of, that thing that from childhood of sort of telling ourselves stories about what happens in life, and they could be completely inaccurate. Because
right.
it's rare, I think, where we actually have all of the pieces together, where we don't know what is going on with the other person. I don't know what's happened to you earlier in your day that has caused you to be behaving the way that you are now. It's it's just so complex. Just
Yeah, and we can read books, and you can do all this other stuff. It's just it's sometimes it's still so hard to apply that in real life.
yeah.
But the good thing about it is you can control it, a lot better now too. I think by doing the neurofeedback, you learn to control it a little bit better. Instead of a great example, Toby. I was reading a book. The title of it, I'll think of it in a second. But it was rumble strips on the side of the road. It's like that's the same thing as like fear with us, fear and doubt is like a signal, like it's the same thing as rumble strips on the side of the road. It's like when you hit those rumble strips, it says, hey, come on back to the middle of the road. You're going off track. And that's the same thing with fear or anxiety or doubt in us. It's like, hey, it's just a signal telling you to come back to center because you kind of veered off a little bit.
Right. Right. And that actually is a kind of a nice segue, because I wanted to sort of ask you, fear was something that came up, I think, just as a general topic a lot,
Mhm.
throughout that week we spent together. I think in part because, it's something that I think with all of us, sort of the fear of failure, fear of disappointing other people, fear of disappointing ourselves, I think played a huge role in kind of motivating us to get where, where we kind of got to, but at the same time is sort of still maybe detracting from some happiness or being content with yourself. How do you view as far as, fear? Do you feel like you're motivated more by fear or more by success? Is that,
I think fear.
you think fear?
I think fear,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be, because um, fear is just a distraction, really. Because we are programmed uh, to be happy and have self-esteem. It's just the self-doubt and the fear and the anxiety is just what we see on the outside instead of if we look on the inside, we're already programmed everything we need.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is just somehow society has instilled fear in us.
Right. It is. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's something that it is instilled because it's not like we're not living our lives. I don't think most people, at least in the United States, are not hopefully like living their lives in a state of like actually being in fear of their lives, on a
Right.
day-to-day basis. But yet we sort of still react as if our lives are sort of in danger,
Yeah.
with this kind of fear. And I
Yeah.
I would actually kind of I the way I think about it, like I actually think we are wired a little more towards fear, just
Hmm.
from an evolutionary perspective, because, you know, for instance, like something like social anxiety, if you were, to say get isolated from the pack, from the tribe, like back when we were cavemen, I mean that could have been the difference between, life and death. If you
Right.
were, out the outcast, like,
Yeah.
but now it's something that, I think a lot of anxiety, as especially social anxiety, is like, oh, what does this person think of me? Are they judging me? Do they think that I'm a bad note taker? Like you were saying, like
Right.
it's all this sort of these thoughts that we have that kind of drive us crazy, and it's something that it's not actually really dangerous, but we seem to still kind of think that it is for whatever reason.
Well, and I think we like the fear what we were designed for is fight or flight, and to be in fear for
Yeah,
in case a freaking tiger or something was chasing you. Yeah, you're gonna be in fear.
yeah,
But like I think a lot of people and are in fear like throughout the whole day, and really, it's no reason even to be. Our bodies weren't designed to be stay in fear.
yeah. You're right.
You
Yeah,
and people we're feared. We're just feared about what does this person think about me? What's going to happen here? And and if we can get away from that and just use fear as when it's needed instead of worrying about what everybody thinks, I think everybody would be a lot better off.
yeah,
The fear of just like social anxiety or what everybody thinks, and it's just crazy how our body's not designed to stay in that fear that long, and it just
yeah.
spirals out of control.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get into
Yeah,
this doubt of I can't do this and I can't do that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, because it's something like, say we were getting chased, by the saber-toothed tiger, it would be very worthwhile for us to have that adrenaline rush,
Right.
that response to mobilize us to have more blood flow to our muscles and lungs to be able to either fight whatever predator it was or run away from it. But then afterwards, after we were safe, it would be normal for us to relax,
Right.
to go back to chilling.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of us, like, I think a lot of kind of like chronic stress that sort of plagues our society is like it sort of never ends with a lot of people. Like it's, people, you go to work and get stressed out by that, and then, you go home and you get stressed out by whatever's going on, and, paying bills, and,
Yeah.
if you have family, friends, your parents, like all of these different things that aren't inherently, like threatening. They're not going to kill us,
Exactly.
but they
I
put
tell
us in that same
I,
sort of state, right?
and I use that with my employees too a lot. They go off and they get so worked up about the littlest things. I'm like, hey, nobody's going to die here. You know, it's gonna
Yeah.
be okay. I promise you. You know.
And then I feel like that probably is a huge help, to them as well as the company for you to
Yeah.
sort of be that rock where you're sort of
Yeah.
everything's all right. You're not getting freaked. You seem
Yeah.
like you're, very kind of centered where you're able to, at this point where you're able to sort of take them when they're kind of, going a little haywire and pull them in and,
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay. Do you sort of see that as far as like being able to sort of um like as as a leader, do you think it seems like something that's a really kind of important piece of the puzzle to sort of be able to.
Yeah. You have to be able to let them know that everything's gonna be fine and not to worry so much. And I think some of them they try to just they want to be too perfect, and they put too much on their plates, or they want to they're just want everything to be so perfect. And I'm like, that's like, for example, I have one that she's such a rule follower, and the rules are just there for guidance. Sometimes you got to go to the right, sometimes you got to go to the left, just to make the world go around. It's not going to be a straight line. And it's like when somebody goes off to the right, I say it's fine, it's okay. we're here to make them happy. So if it takes us to go off to the right a little bit to make them happy, then it's okay, because nobody's going to die, nobody got hurt. You know,
Right,
and
right.
it's a different personality. She's just a rule follower now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it goes kind of back to how we were trained. I mean, I think of, growing up, as a kid, and it's like you got to ask, got to raise your hand and ask the teacher to go to the bathroom. Like thinking back, it's ridiculous. Like
Yeah,
how
I
how
know.
many rules there are in school. How like it's
Yeah,
it's crazy. But I never thought of it as crazy because it was just normal. That's just
because
what
that's what you thought
we
your
were
normal.
trained to do, to
Yeah, that was
follow rules.
that was your normal. We follow rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
we follow these rules that people make up. Um, I don't even know if they. I mean, I don't even know where they why they think they can make these rules up. I mean, it's like these amateurs are making up these rules of this is what you should do. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It's like what there don't need to be the rules in place. Like why are
Yeah.
you making life more complicated
Uh,
than it already
yeah.
is?
I mean, you don't go out and kill somebody and all that stuff like that. But these other rules that y'all come up
Yeah.
with, there's like, who are you to make these rules?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's something I think I'm thinking back to in high school. I remember I had an English teacher who said basically you got to learn the rules before you can break them. And
Uh-huh.
and what he was talking about was in the sense of, like grammar and literacy sort of things, where you can sort of play around with these different things and sentence structure and having condensed sentences and sometimes starting a sentence with like but like
Yeah.
something that it was previously like, oh, you should never do this. um, but it's sort of like something that I feel like once you what he was saying was kind of once you learn here's kind of what you're supposed to do, then you can kind of like start, finding your own lane and you don't have to follow every single little rule. You can sort of, mold, your writing into whatever kind of way that you want it to. And I think
Yeah.
that's sort of applicable in a lot of other aspects of life.
Hmm.
That's always kind of stuck with me, that just him saying that.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay in one certain lane just because someone said you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I use that analogy a lot too of these I don't know if it's still going on now, but these tests that these kids have to take, they want to standardize these tests these kids take. It's like, well, not everybody's going to be the same. Like if you look in the animal kingdom, the if you grade a squirrel and a giraffe on climbing a tree, well, the giraffe's going to fail. you know because he's not going to be able to climb that tree like that squirrel. Yeah.
Yes, that's such a good example. Yeah, and that's completely the way we treat kids is like, okay, we're going to give you all the same test, and those of you who do well, there's actually been research that has found that kids who are doing well in school, the teachers will actually pay more attention to them
Hmm.
because they sort of see more potential. They're like, okay, this kid, is doing well. I'm going to pay, more attention to whether it's them consciously doing that or not. I don't know, but the end result is basically where it's sort of the sense of like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, where
Right.
the kids who are succeeding for whatever reason, they're just good at math, then they get all of this extra attention, which causes them to, people are telling them how good they are, so then they have even more drive to do it. There
Hmm.
was another example with actually, and I'm not going to say this perfectly, but this was from one of Malcolm Gladwell's book. I think it was Blink, where he was talking about basically with NHL players. There's this strange phenomenon where a lot of them are born certain months out of the year. And basically it was like, trying to figure out why is that the case. And what it came down to was those people, those were like the eldest
Right.
individual, so like of their class. So say they were, playing hockey in second grade, um, they could have had, they could have been 9 months older than the previous kid, and that 9 months when you're a kid, I mean that's a big difference,
Yeah.
just in size and a lot of things. So basically, the kids that were older, but they were more successful, which in turn it sort of caused a spiral where it caused them to practice even harder and play even more hockey because they were getting all of this positive feedback. You're doing so great, keep it up,
Hmm.
and they were having fun probably because they're
Yeah.
winning and kicking all the other kids' ass.
Yeah.
And it just caused them to ultimately, you know some of them went pro, and that's kind of the part of the phenomena of why a lot of those NHL players are born certain months out of the year. So I
Yeah.
think it relates back to what how we kind of treat kids. I think because it's and I think it's unfortunate when it's a kid who is really brilliant. I think each kid in their own way is super intelligent. I
Uh-huh.
think it's some kids, the system of standardized testing, it kind of works for them. They're good at math, they're good at reading, but for other kids, I think it doesn't, and then it sort of dissuades them from like academics. But at the same time, that could be the smartest kid. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
they could
Exactly.
have, I mean, now we know like with I don't know if you follow any of the research about like there's like IQ obviously being, sort of like general intelligence, but then there's EQ, like emotional intelligence, and um, like that they found is a huge predictor of people's success, is like being able to, like I think a lot what you're probably able to do at work is like being able to sort of understand other people's emotions and be able to relate to people and network. And I mean, that's, they
Yeah.
found it as sort of a bigger predictor of success than IQ.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Just telling people how good they are. And to be the best that you can be. And just always give them that positive reinforcement. I think is so much better than, yeah. You don't have to have the highest IQ. You just have to have a lot of belief that you can.
Yeah. And I know I keep like referencing studies, but there's another one I just have to say is that there's one basically that was I think it was a some kind of, I think, memory task or something, where they told half of the participants that, you know, your IQ is sort of fixed, that your intelligence is fixed and nothing's going to change. Whereas the other half, they told you're going to get better at this the more you do it.
Right.
And the group that was told that they're sort of fixed actually were fixed. Like they actually didn't improve. But the group that was told they were, that they could improve, they actually did.
Hmm.
I think that's, I mean, I think that needs to be applied in school, where it's, you know, if a kid is struggling, you need to, you kind of take them and, you know, help them, kind of get back on the right path instead of, oh, this kid is,
Write him off,
not
right?
write him off. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was? I think it was Nick Saban. He was saying that like the media when these kids mess up, they just want to kick them out of school and ban them and write them off and be done with them. He goes, but wouldn't you rather us have them bring them back in and mentor them and get them back on the right track instead of just putting them back on the street somewhere and they end up in jail or something else just because they made one mistake at 19 years old?
Yeah.
Because the media is quick to throw people underneath the bus, especially these college football kids if they mess
Oh
up
yeah.
any little thing, they're
Oh
such
yeah.
a public eye. And he goes, I had one at Michigan. He had one at Michigan State. I can't remember the guy's name, but so the guy went on to play in the NFL. Now he has a huge business and he has a great family. But if he would have kicked him out like the media wanted him to when he was 19 years old, he never would have had the life he has now.
Right. You know that you know what's so crazy I think about, like, when kids get in trouble in school, they get suspended. It's
Yeah.
like, why would you take a kid who did something and then tell them, oh, you can't go to class? Like
hmm
that seems so, like that
Yeah.
that's just it doesn't make any sense. I think, like what you're saying as far as like the, Nick Saban, giving kids these kind of second chances and taking, mentoring them and actually like teaching them,
Right.
how to kind of, become better people and um, do things the right way. I mean, that seems like such a better way to go about, teaching,
Oh yeah. Instead of just giving up on somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what what sort of inspired you to sort of take that 6-year-old kid kind of under your wing, that you were talking about earlier.
Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just from doing all this self-help work lately, with the neurofeedback and the reading the books um and maybe I felt like, I need to give back. I think the more you give, the more the more you give out to the community and help others, the more you're going to receive. Like if I learn all this stuff and help myself and I hold it in tight like this, that's not doing me any good.
Yeah,
But if you live like this, where your hands open and you're giving and you're more open, then you're going to receive more anyway. So
right.
I think living like this is just so tight, and I think if more people kind of gave what they knew, and want to help each other out as a community, we would be better off. So
Yeah.
I felt like I can help this. Just maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I can at least try.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and obviously, I think, you've got a lot to offer, that kid and I think, that yeah, we all do have a lot to sort of offer each other, but you're right that a lot of people sort of just kind of keep that, keep to themselves, don't want to bother,
Yeah,
any
like
and
used to, I would have been like, I'd probably just keep myself. Nah, I'm not really that good.
yeah, that self-doubt.
Self
Yeah.
doubt, and just hold it
Yeah.
aside. But really, I think you just if you just give and just let it flow, it's gonna just if you get the good vibes off and you're doing the right thing, you're doing it for the right reasons. I think you'll have a positive effect on the next person.
Absolutely. I think it's something I remember thinking a lot about as far as, with this sort of meditation and neurofeedback. There's like, obviously like the kind of the monks, who, Tibetan monks who kind of, live this very like solitary life and they're sort of devoting themselves to sort of a spiritual practice and meditating all these hours per day. And I think about it, and it's like, what, who am I to judge them, as far as,
Right.
they're living their lives how they want to live them. But at the same time, I think it's so cool when one of them comes back. Like there was this guy, Mathieu Ricard,
hmm
he was like a French scientist who became a monk, and then now he's back, sort of back in society, and he's like, you know, doing interviews and getting his brain scanned, so they're able to like see, that's sort of some of the stuff we were looking at that company. Was like, okay, what do these really like high performance, really happy people, what sort of brain activity do they have? How does that differ from so, quote unquote normal people. And that, I think that's a huge, advancement to science, to be able to for him to be able to come back and let people sort of study him, and for him to give talks about, all the stuff that he had learned,
Right.
because he had sort of, exiled himself, I guess, for a little bit, and took a break from civilization, but then came back and actually shared what all the really cool stuff that he had learned.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead. Nope,
no,
go ahead.
no, I mean, that was about it I had on that point. I just,
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I and also I think, this is part of I hadn't told you, kind of, as far as why I really, what part of what inspired me to do this podcast was like being able to have all of these really raw, kind of unfiltered conversations with people, and really kind of just share knowledge, because I feel like that's so much of what, I think a lot of what we were doing with the neurofeedback, like, it was a lot, very individualized, and very, you know, working on ourselves and working on our own issues, but then we would always meet for groups, and we would always, have long conversations over meals, and, sort of relate to each other's experiences. And I think honestly that that was, parts of that were my favorite. That
Yeah.
might have been my favorite part, real part of doing that, was honestly just building that kind of, that tight knit community over a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Because normally I wouldn't have done that. I just kept everything to myself, but I was kind of forced to, and it actually felt really good to be able to have that, to have those and come together and have that discussion, and then talk over meals and things like that. And I think we all four of us were at first like, whoa, I don't but
Yeah,
we got used to it, and it was like, okay, this is kind of neat. So
yeah.
yeah. And
I
I said,
remember. Or
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was listening to something earlier, and a guy said, I think Daniel somebody. Um, he said, people go to office to hide from opportunities. And if they have an office, they go in to hide from opportunities. Like, and it gets them away from everybody. And I go, that's, yeah, because I don't have an office. I never thought it was good to have an office. And it goes, you can just go in and sit and waste your whole day away, just sitting in an office, and you don't get anything accomplished really.
You're
I
out
think,
on the water. You're
uh,
soaking up the sunshine, right?
I
At least
know.
part of the time.
Well, I mean, I have captains and stuff like that, but
Sure.
I'm running around the stores and running around the park
Okay,
and
yeah.
everything. So yeah, I think though that builds a better character, and you learn more out of life by getting out and you know interacting with society, and you
Yeah,
learn from everybody. You're more creative than just sitting in an
yeah,
office. Yeah.
absolutely. Another thing I wanted to say about, just that experience that week is, I think I remember I might have been talking to one of the other guys we went through the program with, just about how crazy it was that, like, we had sort of told each other stuff that, like, our best friends didn't know about us,
Yeah.
like the level of sort of community that we had built in such a short amount of time. As you were saying, like, we started the week very, like, oh, like, I don't know about these people,
Right. Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
by the end of it, it was like, man, we all traded information. I've, become, good friends with one of the people. I'm so, honored and happy that we've had this opportunity right now to catch up.
Yeah.
Um, but I think honestly, it's just, the connections that were able to be built there, because we were all. You're right. You used the right word, that we were really forced. Yeah,
Yeah.
really were kind of forced, but then it became sort of like it started to feel more natural, where we kind of, there was a mutual level of kind of respect and trust, I think,
Yeah.
that we sort of built amongst one another.
Well, we broke down that barrier, that wall, that like like hold everything in. It just we just broke it down, and just had to dive in, and it just it felt good. It really did.
Yeah,
You don't realize how good it is just to get out and talk to people.
yeah, and have those really really honest. I think, because, like, I think about, we have, at least I have so many kind of just surface level interactions, kind of the water cooler sort of talk, like,
Yeah.
hey, what were you doing over the weekend? Oh, do you see the game? Like and all of
Right.
that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm curious from your perspective, why do you think that is that we were able to like all open up and like sort of like become kind of closer with one another than we're able to do with a lot of other people in our life.
Well, I think we all went in. I think going into something like that, you have to be a little all on the same mindset. So I think we all kind of had the similar mindset of we were trying to be a better person. And once we got that wall broken down, I think we were able to succeed at that. It's because you going in, you're going in to I guess hack your brain, they say, and you coming out, you just realize that you have so much more potential. And I just think that it was in the mindset going into it that, hey, I'm going here to make myself better, so I need to follow what they're saying.
Hmm. Yeah, I think having that kind of tribe of people who are having kind of the same goals as us and
Yeah.
sort of we're ready to kind of break down some of those barriers, because I think a lot of people honestly aren't, just people we go about, we interact with on a daily basis. And maybe, I feel like it's probably a lot of their own sort of,
Hmm.
stuff going on. Um, but yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, I think, sometimes things just kind of fall into place where, you build a really good connection with a certain person,
Yeah.
but with other people, you just don't really,
Yeah.
connect. You're not really on the same kind of frequency.
And that's
I don't
okay
know
too.
how to exactly
Yeah.
describe it, but
Yeah, they're just not. Yeah, you're just not on the same page at
yeah.
that point in your life, and eventually, you will be. I think, and it's okay not to be on the same page. They're just not. They're not ready to make that step that you're ready to make.
Uh-huh.
And
Absolutely.
I think if you can see the inside of everybody, every person, really, I think we're all basically the same.
Mm.
We
Yeah,
just we have this wall of self doubt and fear and everything else surrounding us. But like I said earlier, we're programmed to have joy and happiness and self
yeah.
on the inside. So if you can penetrate through all that and see everybody on the inside, I think we're all basically the same.
Yeah. I think we want the same things in general. We want happiness for ourselves. I think it's normal human behavior to sort of want the best for other people. Um,
Yeah.
Even though we are sort of in this like hyper competitive society where I think a lot of times we're sort of trained to like, sort of achieve success as we're sort of pushing other people down.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think that's the way it has to be.
Mm-mm. No, I don't think so either. I think a lot of people just settle for average too. Like, oh, this is it. You know, and so they
Yeah.
they get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, and they just I think it's
It's
also they accept like, oh, this is just the way things are, like,
Yeah.
and they think that, oh, that's just the way I am. Like I'm getting mad. I think like there's, in psychology, there is sort of something we learned as far as like, the way kind of thoughts and emotions work is like you sort of you sort of have a thought, and then there's this space in between, having that thought and your reaction, where
Yeah.
you're actually able, if you kind of have enough awareness to be able to go in and consciously decide, okay, do I want to actually, even though I'm thinking this person is an asshole, do I want to actually say that to their face, or is it in my best interest to sort of, kind of hide that a bit, or you know,
Right. Yeah. 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 You're right. And I had something on that earlier. Um, but back to I think that we went into this going into thinking that we know that there's something better than how we're living now. That's why we mesh so well too. We all had that same like, hey, there's something better to this world than the way we're living now. We're not ready to settle for average.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
The four of us, none of us are ready to settle for average.
Right. I think it's huge. Just like I've started to real like I surround myself with people who now have the same mindset,
Yeah.
who are like me in a lot of ways that aren't, they're super passionate about something and they're exactly like that. They're not ready to just settle for, this is just the way things are. I'll just live a mediocre life and, you know, if, I don't achieve the things I want to achieve, you know what?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Well,
no,
they think what they're feeling is they think they're happy, but I don't think they really are because they don't know anything else. If
yeah.
they're not sick or anything like that. Well, today's a pretty good day. Well, pretty good is not a happy day.
Yeah, yeah, and that I feel like that ties in so much to like health in general, where we, I mean, I'm super interested in, and I think we have that kind of common interest in like the biohacking and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean that nutrition was a huge part of that sort of neurofeedback thing that we went into, and I think like you're right where it's like if we're not sick, if we don't have a disease, we think, oh, I'm healthy. But
Yeah.
but you could be, barely holding on, healthy, or you could be flying through every day with a ton of energy. I mean, those are you could say both of those are healthy. You're not diseased in either state, but there's a huge difference. Like I think even with like measuring say hormones, for instance,
Mhm.
you could be, say you have normal testosterone. That could be, you don't have a deficiency where you have severe problems because you don't have enough testosterone. But at the same time, why wouldn't you want to achieve optimal testosterone levels,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah, the medical society, I think, or they have like this level that, well, this is what we settle for.
yeah.
Why do we want to settle for the lower end of the level when there's ways to build it back up to optimum levels and function at our fullest capacity?
What what do you think it comes down to as far as what causes people like me and you to be like, nah, like we're not gonna settle for the way things are. We're gonna improve our situation. What makes us want to do that and and other people are just kind of complacent and kind of just go through life just
I think that just it's total mindset. I really think it's mindset. I think that we believe that we can somehow make this world a better place. And I think that's what you gotta. I mean, that's what I want to leave. I want people to think that I've done something good for the world and helped somebody out. But I think that that's our mindset is we think that there's better, and I think if we're feeling better, then we can help everybody else out too.
mm-hmm.
I think we're all wanting to help people. Personally, I think so, and that's why we have that mindset of because once you do better, you can help more people.
Yeah. Well, and I think like, if you take your example as far as, you've worked super hard and built this awesome business and now you're employing 40 people. I mean, you're enabling them to put food on their kids' plates and to put a
Right.
roof over their head. You're just that alone
Mhm.
is greatly impacting other people's lives. And I obviously if you weren't in the minds, if you didn't have it together enough where you couldn't run a business, none of that would be possible, right? I think it,
Yeah.
yeah,
You got it's all mindset. It's got to be. You could. I think the normal person would probably just kind of skate by, and wouldn't probably build the business to where it is today. They just want to get by, just
hmm
make enough for them, and that's about it.
right.
Um,
I I
I
want
just
to ask,
I mean,
or go ahead.
I just think like I told you, I'm ready to tackle on something, a new project, and I tell people I was like, I'm in this little bitty small corner of my world here in this little tourism town, and I do this little boat tours and shops, but I can't grow that worldwide, and I'm ready to tackle on something where I can make a major impact on the whole world.
hmm
and do something that will benefit everyone.
That's awesome. I think I wanna sort of wrap up this discussion with the posing you the question of what would you tell yourself, say, if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell that person, as far as giving that person advice as far as how to be happy or how to achieve success in this world?
Oh, well, first I'd tell myself that going out partying is not going to get it. But no, I mean, those were experiences, and you learn from them. I think we all have those experiences. But I think I would tell myself that everything that I feel is coming from my thought, and every feeling I have, every emotion I have is just a thought, and I can change that thought any way I want.
That's awesome.
Really, it's your perception of how you see the situation.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Randy, I want to thank you so much for
I
coming
appreciate.
on the show.
Yeah.
And I'm, if people, it's your chance. I mean, if you do want to kind of like plug anything as far as your, your boat business, if anyone did happen to be passing by,
Oh yeah.
Panama City,
Panama City Beach. Yeah. Just
how can people? What's your guys' website?
ShellIslandShuttle.com.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
you guys basically, people can come book kind of a boating tour where they.
Yeah. Well, we first come, first serve. We just run every 30 minutes during the season. We close down during the winter up here, up the northern panhandle.
Where do you take people?
The Shell Island. It's a little island right off the coast there in Panama City. And then we, rent pontoon boats and things like that. So you just go to the website, check it out. You can go to the Shell, you can rent a boat, or go on a dolphin tour.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna have to come visit you at some point.
Yeah, come on, man.
Going on one of those tours.
Yeah, maybe I'll run the whole state one day. How about that?
That would work. Well, Randy, thank you so much again. I think we had it was a pleasure talking with you. I had a really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, good deal. Appreciate
and
you.
for people who do want to follow us, our Instagram for the podcast is Roscoe's Wetsuit Podcast. Also, we're on YouTube. Roscoe's Wetsuit is the YouTube channel. So please like and subscribe on YouTube. We're also iTunes, Apple Podcasts. So there's a lot of ways you can find us now. If you want to watch it on YouTube, or if you just have time to listen while you're driving in the car, you can kind of pick whichever method works for you best. But thanks again for tuning in. Randy, have a great night.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Have a good night.